Well, hello, and welcome back to another Chris McPherson Show Daily Dose. We're talking the US Open, and as I have alluded to and promised, I'm not going to be flying solo the whole time of the US Open. We've managed to bring back the guru who knows what he's talking about on the tennis, Christian Montegan from the First Serve. Good to have you back, mate.
Good to be here, Chris. I could have broken that promise and let you, leave yourself hanging for the rest of the tournament, but I thought, mate, I've got to join you sometime, and today's the day. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, we need someone who actually knows what they're talking about. I think the only things I've got right is when I've tipped long shots and upsets so far across the first few days. It's been a bit of an interesting tournament from that point of view. We were talking about it just off air before. I think we've sort of got double digits of men gone from the seeds. Obviously, Jack Draper withdrew overnight, so that's we're now, as I said, there's 10 of the seeds in the men's and 12 in the women's. There's lots falling, especially for the men when we have a look at sort of the top half of the seeds. We've got 5 of the top 16 gone. Mensig, Medvedev, Ruud, Rune, and Draper now. That's a good thing, though, if you're a non-seeded player, because it means there's some things opening up.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of seats tumbling. Not as bad as Wimbledon a few weeks back. That was just absolute carnage there over on the grass court season. Just seats falling left, right, and center. But the US Open, a bit much the same. I mean, Medvedev is probably the big name, the biggest name so far that's exited. But in saying that, his form is very much dipped. Over the past year, the whole 2025, he hasn't made it past the second round of a major, which is unlike Medvedev, especially on a hard court, to get knocked out in the first round of the US Open. And we know the controversy and drama that happened there. But as you rightly said, it opens up the draw for a lot of these players, and it opens up the draw for one particular Aussie girl, which we'll touch on a bit later on. So yeah, exciting times ahead.
Certainly is when we're looking through the results yesterday. Obviously, Jan-Lennard Struff, we know he's a guy that pops his head up every now and then at a major. He knocked out Holger Rune in 5 sets, a big clash. Arthur Rinderknecht took out Davidovich Fokina, who'd been in some pretty decent hardcourt form leading in. That was one I sort of lent to yesterday, so that was an interesting one to see. We saw Cam Norrie go through, Ben Bonzi. You mentioned Daniil Medvedev just before. He's gone through to the third round. Casper Ruud as well knocked out, so a few fell. Brendan Nakashima losing as well to the Swiss Kim. Mm-hmm. So interesting ones. The one that I want to talk about that I'll get your thoughts on, another, I'm not going to call it a failure because he lost to the 21st seed, but João Fonseca just bundled out again, just hasn't been able to really deliver on the big stages of the Grand Slams just yet.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of hype has been, around this kid for around 12 to 18 months now. We saw him back at the Australian Open, beat Rublev in straight sets, the firepower. I was there courtside, and you think to yourself, wow, this kid is going to be something special. But he went off that title in Buenos Aires, again, a few weeks post the Australian Open. You thought, okay, he's going to kickstart his career probably at the same age as Alcaraz and Sinner, probably even a bit earlier, to be fair. And you thought, okay, he's probably destined for big things. And that still might be the case. It's still early days. Some players take more time to develop than others, so we can't sort of judge them in comparison to the likes of Alcaraz and Sinner, who are obviously on a completely different scale level. But in saying that, you've got to sort of say it how it is. He has been slightly disappointing, especially in some of these tournaments. I mean, he lost to Tristan Schoolgate, the Aussie, a few weeks back in Canada, which was, again, another unexpected result from his end. So, look, he's still got time on his side to, draw those victories together. It's just a matter of, is the hype too much? Are we overhyping this kid, or is he actually the real deal? Does he need, I don't know, maybe a new coach or tweak a couple of his tactics? But the benefit for him is he's just so young, right? I think 18, 19 years old. He's got, the world at his feet. It's just about how he manages it going forward. And he's just got so much talent that he can, afford to make these mistakes early on and learn from those, moving forward. So I wouldn't be too concerned if I was a Fonseca fan.
No, I think, as you say, plenty of time ahead. Let's switch over to the women's side. And there was a few seeds that fell. Jelena Ostapenko, I'll let you talk about that in a moment, the scenes that ensued there. But the other big one was Ludmila Samsonova. I know McCartney Kessler fell to Vondrushova as well. Belinda Bencic, who we saw the best of at Wimbledon. So 4 seeds falling in the women's. What we did see, though, is Arina Sabalenka, Leylah Fernandez, Jasmine Paolini and the likes continue to go through. And some unseeded players who are certainly, the likes of Barbora Krejcikova as well going through. So there's still plenty of big names, but that win for Hon against Samsonova is a big leap forward, because that and the fact that Bencic also bowed out, to your point, opens up a bit of a path where the winner of that match between Lee and Hon who qualified, will play in the fourth round against the winner of Pegula and Azarenka. So it's a nice opening to get through to the last 16. And Priscilla Hon, the way she's serving and the way she's playing, would fancy her chances.
Absolutely massive win for Priscilla. Really happy for her, just considering the journey she's been on. I mean, you have to look back to only a few years ago where doctors told her she might never play again. Some of her injuries were so serious and, planted seeds of doubt in her mind whether she could pick up a racket again. So to be in this position, albeit as well, she's a qualifier, back-to-back qualifying for the US Open, first ever third round appearance at a main draw of a singles Grand Slam. This is just sort of life-changing stuff for Hon at the age of 27. She's still got a few years left ahead of her to hopefully try and crack into the top 100 for the very first time. In the live ranking, she's sitting at about 105 in the world. So that's another milestone that she can hopefully tick off. But in this game against Samsonova, mind you, Samsonova is a very, very good player, very, powerful hitter, serves very well as well, very difficult to break down her serve in particular. And for Hon, I mean, she fired down 18 aces, and she said post-match, speaking to the media, that her serve throughout the whole week, including qualifying, has set the tone for her moving forward and being able to beat a player like Samsonova. And she also mentioned that being able to serve big in some of the key points and in those crucial times has obviously helped her get to that third round, which is probably something that she's worked on throughout her career. So it's sort of been, slow steps for Priscilla Hon, but really happy for her. Like I said, just given what she's been through, over the past few years to get to this point now. This is what tennis is all about, right? I mean, we saw with Tristan Schoolgate against Lorenzo Sonego as well. Just these sort of these journey stories, coming back from the lower events and the lower tiers, ITFs, grinding it on the challenges, and then to get to this point now, it's sort of what you live for. It's why you play tennis. So for Priscilla, it's fantastic.
Certainly is. Really excited to see what she can do in that next round against Lee. And a win would, as you say, Christian, take her into the top 100, which is a momentous piece for any tennis player, certainly. So let's have a look now. Speaking of, you touched on Tristan Schoolgate, let's move into Aussie Watch and let's have a look at what will be day 5 of the US Open. And unlike yesterday, where we just had the 2 Aussies in action, there is a plethora of Aussies in action. Let's start with Adam Walton. He comes up against Coleman Wong, who is a story in himself. The first Hong Kong player to make it past the first round of a slam, as Hong Kong now currently sits, but the first Hong Kong player since 1954, when Hong Kong was part of the British Empire and part of British occupation. So 70 years it's been since anyone from the nation that he calls home has made it to this point. He's ranked 173 in the world. He's going to skyrocket up the rankings. He's had to battle to get to this point, obviously through qualifying, etc. But he comes up against Adam Walton, and we've talked about Walton earlier, or I talked about Walton earlier in conversations where I thought he was a great chance up against Ugo Humbert, and he certainly proved that, knocking out the seeded player in 4 sets. But Wong's got some form. He's beaten some decent names in qualifying, beating Matteo Gigante, Billy Harris, and now taking out Kovacevic, the American, in straight sets in the first round.
Yeah, I think Wong might have his work cut out for him against Adam Walton, in all honesty, because in that game against Humbert, Walton only hit about under 30 on forced errors. So it goes to show Walton just loves to hit the ball back in play, ask the question of the opponent to say, look, if you want to beat me, you have to hit through me. You've got to hit winners if you want to get past me. So for Walton, that's going to be the key for me in this match. And I thought he was very impressive in that 4-set win against Humbert, who, look, the Frenchman, when he's off a bit, that's where you can capitalize on some inconsistencies on his game. His serving probably wasn't quite up to par, as we've normally come to be accustomed to when it comes to Humbert's game. So, I think Walton and Wong actually met at the Miami Open earlier this year, where Walton won in 3 sets, and I clearly remember that game because that's when Walton went on that good run to the round of 16. I believe lost to Taylor Fritz. So that was sort of the tournament that which sort of it kickstarted Walton to probably say to himself, look, I can match it with some of these top players. I can match it in these big tournaments. And let's not forget, Walton's come off another big win against Daniil Medvedev a few weeks ago, I believe, in Canada as well. So look, he's been sort of slowly building towards these moments. And after his win against Humbert, he said that it's given me this confidence, this new sense of belief that I can really stick it with with some of the best in the world. And it just goes to show, if you keep grinding it out on the lower tier levels, the challenges. Walton's played a lot of challenger events throughout the past couple of years. That those experiences help you. They help you manage certain situations. They help you for these bigger occasions. And although Wong isn't, he's not a top 50 player, or he hasn't sort of been a well-known established player as of yet, it's still a matchup which Walton should be wary of. But at the same time, I think it's one which he should win and get to the third round. So, a very intriguing matchup, that one.
Certainly is. The good news for Walton is he's now the third highest ranked men's Australian player. Has moved up to a career high of 75, slipping past Jordan Thompson after Thompson's obviously injuries and other challenges he's had. So that's a big thing for him. It's a shame for Jordan Thompson that he's on the drift, but Walton's moved up, as I said, to 75, and he could move up inside the top 70 if he wins this match. And again, I think he will get it done. I've got him winning this one in 3 sets. So it'll be an interesting matchup. Looking forward to seeing how that plays out. You mentioned the name before, Tristan Schoolkate. He has a big ask. He comes up against a very handy and tricky customer in Alexander Bublik, 23rd seed. This is really going to test his mettle.
Yes, but in saying that, against Bublik, we know Bublik's ability, right? We've seen it this season, being able to come back from 2 sets down against Dimonor at the French Open. He won Halle, beating Sinner along the way. We know he's got tons of ability. That's not even a question. It's a matter of, can he string those bits of quality together for a full match? And Schoolgate is the type of player who can expose those deficiencies throughout the game, where if Bublik wins the first set, he might drop in terms of his concentration levels. And Schoolgate is the type of player to be able to recognize that on the other side of the net and pounce on those moments. So I think, look, all things considered, if that 5-set victory over Sonego for Schoolgate hasn't taken too much out of him in terms of energy in the tank, I think he should be able to keep up with Bublik here. I don't expect too many long rallies, on these hard courts in New York, but look, Bublik is the favorite, but don't put it past Schoolgate to at least win a set or two and really keep it close. I think he's come so far now, Schoolgate, obviously receiving that wild card and taking the most of that opportunity now, obviously with that first round win earlier a couple of days ago. So from an Australian point of view, it'd be great to see him get over the line, but he's going to have to serve well against Bublik if he's to have any chance.
Yeah, certainly. Interestingly, like his first round opponent, Bublik, a losing record on hard courts this season. So Schoolgate's played a lot of hard court tennis, as you tend to do, playing around the fringes in some of these smaller tournaments. There's a lot of hard courts getting around as opposed to the natural surfaces. The natural surfaces do suit Bublik a bit more. And we know that Bublik's also prone to a little bit of a nightmare of a performance or a slip, or if he gets down and dejected, Christian, he can sort of throw the towel in. I think it was one of those matches at the French or Wimbledon where he sort of basically admitted, if I had got broken there and lost that set, that would have been the end of me. So we'll wait and see. The good thing, if Bublik stays alive, it sucks for an Aussie, but we'll get some entertaining press conferences. Let's keep rolling with the Aussies because we've got a lot to get through. Next up is the great white hope for Australia, Alex de Minaur. He comes up against Japan's Shinataro Mochizuki. Now, I don't know a lot about Mochizuki. He's ranked just outside the top 100. He's a young Japanese player. He's worked his way through qualifying. But what do we know about him? Do we expect him to pose any real trouble to Alex de Minaur, who's won 8 out of his last 10 matches?
I haven't seen much of Mizuki, to be honest. I just know that he's a young player, as you mentioned, coming through the ranks, trying to qualify for some of these Grand Slams. Now he's at this level where he's trying to sort of push through into that top 100. A very fiery player, I've heard from a couple of people. So de Minaur's got to be wary because it's a matchup which, yes, obviously Alex on paper should be winning, let's say, in straight sets. But at the same time, if you don't know too much about your opponent, or it's very difficult to get some analysis on him, it can be, very tricky, at least for, the first set or two, until de Minaur sort of settles and understands his opponent's rhythm and his tactics, his movements, etc., etc. So I think over time in this match, de Minaur will get the gist and he should be able to comfortably get over the line, because I thought against his fellow countryman, Christopher O'Connell, that straight sets win for Alex was very impressive. Never easy playing a good friend. Both Sydney siders, and O'Connell is a very, very solid player. So I thought Alex served extremely well in that match, and that's going to be the big key for me in this tournament is, can Alex keep that first serve percentage at a high level? We've seen earlier this year it's dropped some games below 50%, and when you're serving at those types of numbers, you're not going to be able to knock off many top players, that's for sure. At least try to get past the quarterfinals, which he's trying to aim to do, right? Made the last date in New York 12 months ago, trying to go one better. So for de Minaur, it's all about conserving the energy, trying to get through this match as quickly as possible, but not underestimating your opponent, which Alex never seems to do. So he should be fine.
Yeah, certainly. I think we're expecting another straight sets victory from de Minaur here. If he's going to lay the platform, as you say, the first serve will be the key, and it's a great opportunity for him to hone that in. Speaking of our top Aussies, we go to our second-ranked Aussie, and we go to Alexei Popyrin, and he's a cautionary tale of what happens when you slip outside the top 32 players that are playing at a Grand Slam, just outside those seedings, as he slipped to about 36 in the lead up to this tournament. Wasn't seeded, got through the first round, but now draws the world number one of the most informed players on the calendar, Jannik Sinner, in the second round. The only positive I can offer you here, Christian, is they've played once before on the tour, and Popyrin leads 1-0.
Yeah, but even the optimist in you, Chris, said that doesn't really matter too much. It was on the clay in Madrid, 2021 it was, and Popyrin won in straight sets, so you can't really take too much into account with what Sinner was probably a teenager back then or close to it. So, this is going to be a big matchup. I think Popyrin said post-match after his first round win, he'd love a night session because he loves to thrive on those big occasions in front of the big crowds. We know what happened last year when he knocked out Djokovic in the third round, but it's funny because Sinner, Alcaraz, all those top players get priority preferences in terms of when they want to play in the schedule, whether day session or night session. Sinner's probably, or Darren Cahill's probably heard that interview and said, Yannick, how about let's just pick the day session? And they're straight up first up on Arthur Ashe Stadium, which I thought was pretty funny. So, yeah, look, I think Popyrin has a chance to win a set. He's got the firepower, he's got the game to be able to cause a couple of problems because, yes, for Popyrin, looking at that draw and saying Sinner second round, he'd feel dejected, right? I think, okay, my tournament's probably over. But in saying that, on the other side of the token, Sinner's looking at that and saying, look, Popyrin's just outside the top 32. He's beaten Djokovic last year at the US Open. He's won a Masters 1000 12 months ago, reached the quarters as well in Canada. Like, this is not an easy second round matchup, albeit, yes, he'll be expected to win world number one, defending champion, all that, yada, yada. But look, in terms of trying to ease yourself into the tournament, having to play a big hitter such as Popyrin, who isn't going to give you much rhythm at all, considering if Alexei is on top of his game, it's not going to be an easy assignment at all. So I think it'll be closer than what maybe a couple of people will expect, but obviously still tipping Sinner to get through this one in either 3 or 4 sets for me.
Yeah, I think I'll be going 4 sets. I'm hoping that Pop can get through and get 1 set against him, but we'll wait and see. Again, we saw Sinner pull up with that injury in the lead up and in the final against Carlos Alcaraz. But you never know. Is he really at 100%? But I think even at 90%, which he appeared to be, he appeared quite comfortable in that first round, that he'll be too strong and looking to march on and make sure he maintains his number one ranking, which we know is on the line in this tournament. Let's head to, while we're on Aussie Watch, let's head to the women and let's talk about Daria Kasatkina. She comes up against her former countrywoman in Kamila Rakimova, who, never been inside the top 50, Rakimova. She's one of those players, though, that, again, you talked about it before, you wouldn't want to underestimate. And again, to be fair to Daria Kasatkina, I talked about this the other day, since she's been naturalised as an Australian, her form hasn't probably been where she'd like it to be, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I don't know if it's got anything to do with the pressure, representing a new country, whether it's just been one of those seasons. It's been very underwhelming, must be said, ever since probably even just the start of 2025, really, in all honesty. It's been a season of mixed results, inconsistency, had that semi-good run at Wimbledon, won a couple of games, but besides that, been knocked out in the first round in quite a few tournaments and just hasn't been able to find a mojo. And she's the type of player who needs to get a lot of consecutive matches under her belt to build that form. I think she's a bit of a confidence player as well, to be quite frank. So, up against her in this match, it's one of those games which Kasatkina can easily lose this. Probably on paper, you're thinking, yeah, she should win this, but that just hasn't been the case all season long. So look, it's for me, this is a 50-50, in all honesty. Probably wouldn't surprise me if it goes a distance to 3 sets. So, look, from an Aussie side of things, let's hope that she can sort of put 2025 to one side and just focus on, getting through to a fresh start and, doing the basics right, because she's made the fourth round here on a couple of occasions in New York. So it's not like she's not unfamiliar with the environment. She's well accustomed to these conditions, the hard courts. She does play some of her best tennis here, on this surface. So for her, she has to try and bring that all together, bring those components into place to try and play as close to the perfect match as possible, because, obviously, Kazakhina used to represent Russia. Obviously, these two players, know each other's game quite well, growing up in the juniors together. So this isn't going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination. But what are your thoughts, Chris, on that? Who's going to go through?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. When you have a look at the form of Rakimova, realistically, it doesn't shape that well for her. But you've got to remember, this is the player that, she's only had one win against the top 30 player this season, and that was against Jasmine Paolini at the at Wimbledon. So she's got that in her. She's not someone who I think is going to go on stringing together big wins, but she's got that one win in her here, there, just, that could throw a spanner in the works. I think that Kazakhina, if she wants to find a way back to form, this is a must-win match, and she needs to be strong and clinical against someone, as you say, that, she has the benefit of knowing, she's seen Rakimova come through those junior ranks in Russia a couple of years behind her. And again, Rakimova, not someone who's won on the main tour. She's won some ITF titles. There should be a big difference in class here. Rakimova's also spent a lot more time on court in the lead up here. So Kazakhina just has to come out hard, come out firing, make sure she's hitting her shots early, and just take her off the court. From that, I've got Kazakhina needs to win this. Almost in straight sets is almost a must win, must do for Kazakhina here. So I'm hoping that's the case. But this looks like one of those banana peels we've seen her slip on so many times this year already.
Yeah, for sure. Has to be very careful. Could be, like I said before, a three-setter, and that wouldn't sort of bode well for Kazakhina. I'd love to see her just get through in straight sets, preserve her energy for the latter rounds, because, as we've seen, obviously you touched on at the start, Chris, that there's been a few seeds that have tumbled, but the main ones are still sticking around. Right, we saw Coco as well survive that scare against Isla, but still getting through. So they're just, you might not play your best, but they're trying to find ways to get through. I think Kazakhina, that's been one of the big issues all year, is when she's not playing her best tennis, she just can't find ways to grind out results, even when it's ugly. So I think if it's not pretty tennis, then she's in for, not a positive outcome, unfortunately. So let's hope for the best.
We'll wait and see. Let's move on to the final of Aussie Watch, and is Maya Joint, the young superstar Aussie, who's now got 2 titles to her name. I was looking at this matchup. She comes up against Amanda Anisimova, who is the 8th seed. Interestingly enough, Maya Joint, and we know the year that she's had, Maya Joint has only one less tour title than Amanda Anisimova, both absolute youngsters, but Joint, 4 years her junior, ranked 30-something places below her. That's quite a phenomenal stat in itself, but I don't know that it bodes well enough. Anisimova, that really good form coming out of Wimbledon. We know what happened in the final there. She is on an absolute tear here. Can Joint win? Yes. Will she win? I can't see it happening.
It feels like Joint's just a bit too young or not mature enough to handle a match of this magnitude. Maybe in a year or two time, she'd be probably better suited or better equipped to be able to handle someone like an Anisimova. But yeah, you mentioned that difference in terms of titles, but let's not forget Anisimova's taken a bit of time away from the game for mental health issues and other stuff off court as well, which you sort of have to take in. Made, I think, a couple of semi-final appearances at majors as well. So Anisimova's, she's been around a bit for her age. She's accomplished a lot already. You mentioned as well, reached the Wimbledon final. So she's had a really great 2025, and she's really continually building onto something big. I think in her mind, she feels that she's ready to win one of these majors. And I think she is definitely in that conversation, as we saw at Wimbledon only a few weeks ago. Yes, the result was not great, but at the same time, she got herself in that position in the first place. She knocked off the world number 1 back then, Arina Sabalenka. Like she's ready to win one of these. So for Maya Joint, I think it's more about the experience, taking it in. But that's not to say that she can't, take it to her and make it a close contest. That's for sure. But in saying that, I expect Anisimova's power to be too much, and just boding with her experience as well, I think it'll just be a bit too overwhelming for Joint.
Yeah, certainly. I think that's going to be the case. As I said, not completely off the cards, but it would be quite a surprise. Well, while we're talking women's tennis, let's stay on the women's side of the draw and let's have a quick flick through a couple of other matches to watch. There's some interesting ones. We're not quite at those headline matchups just yet. We'll start to see a few more of those coming in the third and fourth rounds, allowing that the seeds don't keep falling. But then that's when we start to have some interesting stories. Let's talk about a former US Open champion up against an American. Naomi Osaka comes up against Hailey Baptiste. Osaka returning to the seeds this tournament, four-time Grand Slam winner. Does Baptiste stand a chance? They've got a 2-0 record in Osaka's favour. When you have a look at those matches, both of them earlier this year, Auckland, Osaka won, and then also at Miami, both times in 3 sets. So it tells me that Baptiste's in with at least a fighting chance here.
Yeah, from the matches I've seen Baptiste over her career so far, I think her serve is really wicked. She's got real pace, real power, precision, accuracy. That's going to have to trouble Osaka if she's to have a chance to knock her off. But I see only Osaka winning. I mean, since she parted ways with Patrick Mouratoglou, her former coach, I think she's just found a new lease of life all of a sudden, playing some of her best tennis. We saw that in Montreal when she reached the final, lost to Victoria Mboko, which is a great decider. But I think for Osaka, she's getting to the stage where players fear again. Players fear seeing Osaka in the draw and saying, "Oh, I do not want to play this version of Naomi Osaka." That's for sure. And I think Naomi is slowly building towards something special in New York. I think she's been touted as one of the favorites by a lot of people I've heard, and rightly so, just by the way she's playing, her dominance on the court, and just the confidence in herself. And that's what she's been lacking ever since she's come back from maternity leave, right? Because we know she's done it. She's a 5-time Grand Slam champion, a 4-time Slam champion, one of those, a 4-time. She's obviously got the experience. She knows how to win these types of events. It's just about her mental state. Can she stay in it to actually win 7 games in one of these majors, 7 games consecutively? So I think that's the big lingering question for her. But in terms of Baptiste, she'll obviously try and get the home crowd on her side as much as possible to try and get into Osaka's head and get into in that aspect. So yeah, that's going to be massive.
Yeah, certainly. I think Osaka will get it done. Obviously, the only glaring concern is the way she did react to that crowd, getting behind Mboko in that final. So it'll be interesting to see if that happens in the US as well. We know what the legacy demons are that sit there, but that's been the only real blemish on Naomi Osaka 3.0, as you might call it. So we'll see how that shapes up. Let's move on and let's talk about Linda Noskova, who is the 21st seed, coming up against Eva Lees. This one's an interesting one. Lees is, we saw her make a really good run earlier in the season at the Aussie Open. This is, for me, Noskova should go in as quite a warm favourite, but Eva Lees has shown her ability to, upset players at different points. Noskova, a 3-0 record on 3 different surfaces, though, here. So you wouldn't think there'd be too many mental concerns for her.
Yeah, but on paper, this is sort of a match that I think could throw up another upset. I think Liz can actually win this match. To be honest, it's funny. I saw a video on social media of her walking the streets of New York, and a fan just randomly approached her. She's such a relaxed character. Really gives a lot, in terms of her answers, her responses. Really shares a lot, about her personal life. And we saw even back at the Australian Open where she got in via a last-minute withdrawal. She played Kimberly Birrell, and she made it all the way through to the 4th round where she played Iga Swiatek on Rod Laver Arena, which is one of the best stories of that campaign at the AO. So, yeah, she's been through quite a bit in 2025 for all the right reasons. She's had a really positive campaign so far, and she'll look to hopefully build that momentum in this game against Noskova. But Noskova is not an easy opponent, that's for sure. She doesn't give you an inch on the court, loves to really step into the baseline, suffocate her opponents. And I think that's exactly what she's going to try and do against Eva Lees, to really dictate the play, make sure the points are on her terms, and try and move Lees around the court as much as possible to open up the gaps and all that sort of stuff, all the tactical side of things. So I think Noskova in that sense is probably the favorite. But yeah, like I said, on paper, I think Eva Lees has, I don't know, just this aura about her that she can go on another one of these deep runs at a major.
We'll wait and see. Noskova, of course, did end Lee's Wimbledon campaign earlier this year. So, again, like you, I wouldn't be surprised if Lees got it done. But Noskova, she's one of the rising stars. She's marching her way up the rankings at the moment, just at the age of 20. So we'll see what else she can conjure. That will be a great match to watch. That is for sure on Court 5 in the early hours of the Aussie morning. It'll be one of the first matches on. Let's now head to the men's side of the draw, and let's talk about, I know how much you love the Italian players, Christian, with your heritage. Flavio Caboli comes up against Jensen Brooksby. Brooksby not at the peak he was. Caboli has been in really good form this year. He's up to being, I think he's in the mid-20s. He's seeded 24. He got his first round win in 5 sets, as did Brooksby. They both had to work hard for those first rounds.
Yeah, Flavio Gaboli is an interesting player, that's for sure. He's played Ben Shelton a few weeks ago back in Canada, where arguably should have won that match serving, for the match in that third set, and ultimately got away from him. And Shelton, funnily enough, went on to win that tournament. So it goes to show that Gaboli is there or thereabouts. Obviously not in that first tier, probably in that second tier below, or that third tier, where he's really trying to push in that top 32, the top 16, and really establish himself as one of these top players who can compete with the likes of a Ben Shelton. So, I love the firepower on him. For such, he's not that tall in stature, Caboli. He reminds me of someone like a Jasmine Paolini on the women's side, who you don't expect much power to come from, but she just surprises you, just a pocket rock. And I think Caboli reminds me a bit about her as well. So, this is going to be a fascinating matchup here at the US Open. I think for Caboli, probably will go in as the favorite for me, considering what I just said and his form coming over the past few weeks. Hard courts, I think he's improved results-wise as well over the past year or two. So, interesting matchup. I'll probably lean towards Caboli here to go through to the third round. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I think you can make a case for either of them. We obviously saw a run to the third round for Brooksby at Cincinnati. He battled hard against Aussie Alexander Vucic in the first round. I think both of them realistically probably could have done a more clinical job in their first round encounters. Caboli came up against his countryman in Francesco Pissarro as well, a match that you probably would have thought a player of his, I guess, standing in the game and the form we'd seen in Toronto, as you said, where, he probably should have got through, a fair way into that tournament, into the quarterfinals, and then what against Ben Shelton. Look, I'm going to go Caboli here, not with a great deal of confidence. I wouldn't be surprised to see Brooksby again. It's that home crowd factor sometimes when these, are, almost a toss of the coin sort of job. Two young guys who are still, I guess, crafting their trade. Caboli's been a bit more successful at that. But again, more suited probably to the natural surfaces. Brooksby a bit more of a hard court game. It's going to be an interesting one, though, as you said. I'm going to lean Caboli in 4, I think, but we'll see how it matches up. So, speaking of players who are not necessarily quite as young, and I do sometimes forget how young this guy actually is because it feels like he's been on the tour for a long time, Christian, is the 26 seed in Stefanos Tsitsipas, the Greek warrior. He comes up against the German Daniel Altmaier. Both these guys have played plenty on the tour. Tsitsipas has been to, obviously some really high highs, and at one time was touted as one of the next big things. They've both had, when you have a look at recent tennis form, not a great time. Both winning records for the year, but I think Altmaier's won 3 of his last 10 matches, including his first round win. Tsitsipas marginally better with 4 of his last 10 matches. It could be argued that this could be an absolute shocker to watch, but I feel like this one's got the makings of a classic.
I think we could have a potential upset on the cards again here, considering Tsitsipas's form. Obviously, rehiring his father as coach at Postelos a few weeks ago before Canada the Swing. 12 months prior to that, he actually sacked his father, as coach. They had a bit of a dispute after his loss in Nishikori there back in Montreal, I believe it was. So for Tsitsipas, nothing's clicked. It's been a case of, it's just been depressing, in all honesty, if you're a Tsitsipas fan. The shots just haven't been falling for him. He just hasn't looked his same old self. And it's just funny. It goes to show, like, we were speaking maybe a year or so ago about, or maybe even longer, about Tsitsipas, Medvedev, and Zverev being the next big 3, and how that's all of a sudden changed with Sinner and Alcaraz bursting onto the scene. It just goes to show how quickly the script can turn in tennis terms. So, for Tsitsipas against Daniel Altmaier here, yes, you'd expect Tsitsipas, given the names of these two. You say Tsitsipas, Altmaier, yes, you pick Tsitsipas as the clear favorite, but form-wise, at least this year, it's just not the case at all. You can't look into that. You've got to delve deeper into the problems that Tsitsipas been facing, and can he actually win a game that he's expected to win. I thought coming back from a set down in his first round was very impressive, from a mental side of things, because like I said, nothing's been falling for him. It could be quite easy for him to just, throw in the towel. We saw Wimbledon had that back issue. He had to retire, I believe, midway through the second set there in the first round. So just nothing has been going right for him. And I believe if Tsitsipas does win this, he will play Alex de Minaur in round 3. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris. But if that is to be the case, Tsitsipas has an 11-1 head-to-head record against de Minaur. So I think from Alex, he'll be sitting on the couch saying, please, Ultimate, get the upset win here. Do not let me face Tsitsipas, because albeit we know Tsitsipas struggles, that'd be a tough assignment for Alex. So yeah, let's see how this one swings.
Yeah, 100% correct there with that one. It will be interesting to see. I also was impressed with how he came back, because it just really reeked of a Tsitsipas crumble, that first match up against Muller, who we know, again, can be a bit challenging. He's going to have to really just make sure he diffuses Altmaier's serve. He's consistent with his serve. We saw that. I think there was 3 tie breaks in Altmaier's first round match against Medjedovic. But Tsitsipas should prove more challenging for him. But I've said that a lot about a lot of people in recent times, and it hasn't been the case. I'm going to go Tsitsipas to get this one done in straight sets. I think he actually comes out of the blocks here, and I think he knows what's on the line. But again, Stefanos Tsitsipas is an enigma wrapped in a riddle, so who knows? The last match we're going to talk about sees America's Tommy Paul come up against Nuno Borges. Paul, the 14th seed. He comes up against Borges, who, again, has been ranked inside the top 30 previously, has slipped outside the top 40 at the moment. He seems to be ever present, Nuno Borges, but without ever really threatening too much.
Yeah, one of those players who's here or there gets an odd good victory. So I remember in the Australian Open, he beat Grigor Dimitrov. That was a really good victory for him. So he's capable of these upset performances, but it's hard to go past Tommy Paul here in front of the home crowd at Arthur Ashe Stadium, second up in the evening in local time over there in the States. It's the way Tommy Paul's playing at the moment, the way he's striking the ball, he's probably one of the most underrated players on tour in terms of probably the top echelon, the top 10, top 20. He's a player. When he's on, he's fit and fire. I think Nick Kyrgios has even said before, he's probably the most underrated player on tour at the moment. The way, just his shot selection, his IQ as well, is off the charts for me as well. The way he's able to read the game tactically, be able to adjust accordingly to different situations. So for Borges, it's going to be a very tough test, on center court. But that's not to say that it can't be an entertaining affair. We know Borges isn't scared of these occasions, and he'll take it up to Paul. But I'm expecting the American to get through here.
Yeah, I would certainly expect that Paul's going to have a bit of a crowd behind him. We know Borges did make the 4th round here last year, so it's not beyond him. He made the 4th round last year at the Aussie Open as well, so he doesn't mind the hard courts, but it's going to be a big ask up against Tommy Paul, who loves the lights, loves the theatre of it. He will be leaning into every bit of the crowd, so I think Paul will get this one done. Maybe in 4. I wouldn't be surprised to see Borges take either the first or second set. But Christian, it's been a huge episode. We've gone nearly 40 minutes talking about it all. We could talk for 40 more. A big thank you to you. Really looking forward to seeing what day 5 brings, and then on from there. It's been a great tournament so far in terms of some surprises and different interesting results. We look forward to seeing what brings the remaining, 12 days. Crazy to think we've still got 12 days after we've already lost somewhere, north of 20 seeds. There's lots of curls in the tail yet. Lots of interesting things to come. Can't wait for it. But as always, a big thank you to you. And if people want to get more in depth on all their tennis, of course, the First Serve is the home of tennis.
Still got a week and a half to go of Christmas. Looking forward to it.